Welcome back to the channel, my friends. Warhammer Man Studios. I'm Warhammer Man, and today we're taking a look at the brand new Lieutenant Titus data sheet. This video is sponsored by CMO Games. More on that later. Alright, so we got a brand new data sheet for Lieutenant Titus, and then also a model to go along with him. And just as a note, Games Workshop did sneak in here and actually make some changes to the data sheet. So a couple things just to specify. One, initially when Titus was put out, the background on the actual data sheet and the corresponding keyword was legends, but they have removed the legends keyword. So what that means is you can take Lieutenant Titus in any army you want, competitive, you can take him to tournaments, etc. There are no restrictions to him. So I'm not sure if that was initially just an error or Games Workshop changed their minds, but at this point in time, you can 100% field Lieutenant Titus in any Warhammer 40,000 Ultramarines army. So he does have the Adeptus Astartes keyword, so he's definitely a Space Marine. He also has the Ultramarines keyword, which means that if you're going to take him, you cannot take any other separate keywords. So you can't, for instance, take any Black Templars and then have an Ultramarine as well, or Dark Angels, etc. So that being said, let's take a look at his stats. So he is Move 6, Toughness 4, 3-up save, 5 wounds, Leadership 6, OC 1. Your typical lieutenant is going to have those exact same stats, except for he's going to have 4 wounds normally. And then weapon-wise, he has a heavy bolt pistol, which is pistol 18 inches, 1 shot, ballistic seal 2, strength 4, -1, 1 damage. So that's going to be right in line with your typical bolt pistol that a lieutenant's going to have. And then he also has a unique Astartes chainsword. So it is anti-infantry 2+, which means that anybody he's fighting in combat with the infantry keyword, he's going to wound on 2s. So even though it's strength 4, he is absolutely designed to mow down infantry, which I think is pretty cool and very lore appropriate. And then he has 8 attacks, hits on 2s, strength 4, -1 AP, and 1 damage. So he's going to be dishing out quite a bit of damage to infantry. Even without attacking your Oath of Moment target, on average, he's going to be getting through about 6 wounds in general against infantry. But obviously, anything with multiple wounds, he's not going to be particularly great into. So if he was, for instance, fighting into Space Marines, he's probably going to kill a couple of them, but he's not going to do nearly as much damage as if he's fighting something like, for instance, Termagants. And then moving over to abilities, he has Feel No Pain 5-up and Leader. So he's able to lead quite a few squads. We'll take a look at that in just a minute. The Feel No Pain 5-up is going to be nice, which means he's going to shrug off 33% of the damage that goes past his armor save. And then his faction ability, he has Oath of Moment. So your Oath target's going to give you reroll hits, and then also +1 to wound with Ultramarines and the new data slate update. Alright, and then he also has Press the Attack. Weapons equipped by models in the models unit have Sustained Hits 1 ability. So each 6 to hit is going to generate an extra hit, and then he's also going to grant this to his unit that he's leading. So he's substantially going to increase the damage output of the squad that he is attached to. And then we also have Honor the Chapter. If this model is destroyed by a melee attack, if it has not fought this phase, roll a d6. On a 2-up, do not remove it from play. This model can fight after the attacking unit has finished making its attacks. It is then removed from play. So essentially he fights on death on a 2-up. So Lieutenant Titus is 70 points. So just kind of comparatively looking at him relative to a lieutenant, he serves a completely different role. A lieutenant is 65 points, Titus is 70 points. The lieutenant's main ability that he grants is lethal hits, meaning 6s to hit are going to auto wound. Titus grants sustained hits 1 instead of lethal hits. So he's going to substantially increase the volume output of himself and the squad with sustained hits. As where with lethal hits, you're not increasing your output, but you're increasing your likelihood of securing damage. So 2 completely different roles, right around the same points. And then also Titus is going to be fighting on death, as where a normal lieutenant is going to have target priority and grant you the ability to fall back and then still shoot and charge. So a little more tactical flexibility from a normal lieutenant and lethal hits instead of fight on death and sustained hits from Titus. Titus has the Feel No Pain, which is going to increase his durability. He also has the extra wound, but he doesn't have the optional equipment. So normally with the lieutenant, what I will do is I'll swap out all of his equipment for a Neo Volkite pistol, Mastercrafted power weapon, and storm shield. So this grants him a 4-up invulnerable save, which Lieutenant Titus does not have an invulnerable save. His pistol is slightly better because it goes to damage 2, devastating wounds, and then strength 5. It's still only 1 shot. You're very rarely going to get off your devastating wounds, but the damage 2 is nice if your opponent fails a save. And then the Mastercrafted power weapon is going to give him 5 attacks hitting on 2s at strength 5, -2 AP, and 2 damage. So again, substantially increasing his damage output against anything that has more than 1 wound. And then if we just go down to the second half of his data sheet and we check out his leader ability, there's actually not much difference here. So Titus can attach to Assault Intercessors, Blade Guard Veterans, Hellblasters, Infernus Marines, Intercessors, and Stern Guard. A normal lieutenant can also attach to Company Heroes and then a Tactical Squad. Now a quick word from today's sponsor, CMO Games. CMO Games carries a full range of Games Workshop products including miniatures, paint, terrain, tools, and more. They take pre-orders for most Games Workshop new releases as early as possible, usually 12:01 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. CMO Games offers 15% off of MSRP for most all Games Workshop products and offer fast free shipping to the continental United States on orders over $50. Most orders ship out within 24 hours. You know their customer service is top-notch as they've been selling games online for over 20 years. Use the affiliate link below and let them know that Warhammer Man sent you. So the real question is Titus actually better? Is he worth taking? And if you were going to take him, when would you actually take him? And I think the answer is definitely yes. He's definitely good. Now, is he amazing? Not really. Situationally, he could definitely be amazing, but I think overall a regular lieutenant is probably as good, if not better. But I think they play two completely different roles. For instance, the lieutenant's main ability, being able to give you lethal hits, is a very specific special ability that you're looking to give to the squad that he's attached to. As where Lieutenant Titus's special ability, sustained hits, is also a very specific ability that's excellent on certain units. So for instance, one thing I like to do with the lieutenant normally is put him in a Hellblaster squad. So having a squad of Hellblasters with lethal hits means they can shoot at something like a knight, and all of my sixes are going to auto wound. So with 20 shots, I'm going to average like 3 auto wounds, and then if I'm Oath of Momenting that knight, which is probably my main target, I can reroll all of my non-sixes, and then typically get another 3 auto wounds. So that's going to give me somewhere around like 6 auto wounds, and then for the rest of my wounds, because the toughness is higher than my strength, but if that's my Oath of Moment target, all of a sudden it goes to 4s, which means I'm probably going to get another 4 or 5 off. Now, alternatively, a Hellblaster squad with Lieutenant Titus attached, those 20 shots are going to get 3 sustained hits, and then you're going to reroll your misses and probably get another one, so you're going to get 4 extra hits. But realistically, it's not necessarily worth rerolling your hits, because you're only going to get sustained hits 17% of the time, but a typical lieutenant is not really going to benefit you if you're shooting at something like legionaries, because you already would be wounding on 2s, so the auto wounding is not actually that great. As we're getting the extra hits from sustained hits is going to give you more hits that just wound on 2s. So the real question is, what do you want your unit to be able to take down? If you want it to be able to take down extremely durable targets, then lethal hits is probably better. If you want it to be able to dish out mass amounts of firepower, then sustained hits is probably better. And because this benefit is not only in shooting, but also in combat, either the regular lieutenant or Lieutenant Titus can definitely benefit quite a few units. One of the specific units that I like a normal lieutenant for are Blade Guard veterans, so you can get the lethal hits. But you could say that Lieutenant Titus with a bunch of Blade Guard veterans would be really good as well, because he's going to add something that the squad doesn't already have. They have quite a few attacks, all at -2 AP, 2 damage, but he's going to add in a bunch of extra attacks with anti-infantry 2 up at -1 AP, 1 damage. And then him granting them a bunch of sustained hits means that you're going to get a bunch of extra hits with their power weapons, as where your normal lieutenant is going to allow a Blade Guard squad to take down tougher targets, something like an Imperial Knight or a monster, but it's not going to increase the volume of attacks that you get. So I definitely think there is a place for Lieutenant Titus. I think realistically though, it's all about what you're looking for. If you want to be able to get some sustained hits, Lieutenant Titus is the way to go. If you want to have the ability to have lethal hits, then your standard lieutenant's the way to go. Unfortunately, the fight on death is pretty good, but I would much rather have the typical lieutenant's ability to fall back, shoot, and charge. So all of that being said, let's talk about the absolute ideal situation for Lieutenant Titus and when I would definitely take him. So we got to look at what his abilities are and then what they pair the best with. And in my opinion, they pair the best with Stern Guard veterans. So your standard Stern Guard veteran squad with the new updated rules is going to have Stern Guard focus, which means each time a model in this unit makes an attack against your Oath of Moment target, you can reroll the wound roll. So that means with Oath of Moment, you're going to have reroll all your hits, and then you're also going to have reroll all your wounds. And you have 2 different shooting options for your Stern Guard veterans. I personally like the combi weapon. It is anti-infantry 4 up, devastating wounds, and rapid fire 1. It has a 24-inch range, 1 shot, ballistic skill 4, strength 4, AP 0, damage 1. So if we pair a typical lieutenant with this squad, the problem is that your anti-infantry devastating wounds ability is not going to have the opportunity to proc every time you get a lethal hit because you're automatically going to have wounded. But the goal of this squad is to unload on infantry, and because you're anti-infantry, your devastating wounds are going to trigger on a 4 up instead of a 6 up, which means 50% of your hits are going to be devastating wounds. So these guys are extremely lethal against infantry. So if you have a 10-man Stern Guard squad hitting on 4s with sustained hits from Titus, in rapid fire range, that's going to be 20 shots. You're going to hit 50% of the time, which means you're going to get 10 hits. And then you're going to reroll your 10 misses and get 5 more hits. Plus on average, you're going to proc 3 sustained hits. So you're going to end up with 18 hits. So if you're going into infantry, that means your first roll, you're going to get on average 9 devastating wounds, and then you're going to reroll your 9 fails, and then you're going to get another 4 or 5. So that means a Stern Guard veteran squad shooting at an oath target with Lieutenant Titus attached is going to give you about 13 or 14 devastating wounds into an infantry squad. So that is extremely powerful. There are very few things in the entire game that have the ability to dish out that much devastating wound damage. Now, alternatively, you take that same unit and you shoot it into something like an Imperial Knight. You're going to get on average 18 hits. And then on your initial roll, you're going to get 3 devastating wounds. You're going to re-roll your 15 and probably get another 2 devastating wounds. So now you're doing 5 devastating wounds to an Imperial Knight. So regardless of what these things are shooting at, with the ability to re-roll wounds, and then the extra hits from sustained hits, on top of your Oath of Moment rerolls, you're going to be able to dish out quite a bit of damage with a Stern Guard squad. And then keep in mind on top of that, that normally a 10-man Stern Guard squad has the ability to upgrade to 2 heavy bolters. And while they don't have the anti-infantry keyword, they still have devastating wounds. They have 1 AP and then 2 damage a pop. And then alternatively, you could choose the Stern Guard bolt rifles, which are 2 shots apiece at 24 inches. They're assault, devastating wounds, heavy, and rapid fire, which means they're going to get 3 shots apiece, which means the 10-man squad's going to be dishing out 30 shots. And then with your sustained hits, you're going to get a bunch more on top of that. And then couple that with your rerolls from Oath of Moment, and then your rerolls to wound as well. So you're going to average about 31 hits with your sustains and rerolls, and then devastating wounds on 6s with rerolls. Again, you're going to end up with roughly like 9 devastating wounds. On top of that, you're going to get a bunch of extra wounds with -1 AP. Toss in those Stern Guard heavy bolters at 2 damage a pop. Some of them are going to proc devastating. And realistically, when you start stacking some of these abilities, I think the absolute best unit that you could put Lieutenant Titus in is a Stern Guard veteran squad. And the main reason that he is particularly good in this squad is because of the devastating wounds on the Stern Guard veterans. The last thing you want to do is proc lethal hits, because then you don't have the opportunity to roll that initial wound roll and then also re-roll that wound roll to proc your devastating wounds. So is Lieutenant Titus actually good? I definitely think he is. Is he better than a standard lieutenant? The real question is what squad you want to put him in. In general, I think the standard lieutenant is better because he has better abilities. The lethal hits in general is better. And then also the ability to fall back, shoot, and charge is better. The regular lieutenant also has an invulnerable save if you give him the shield. He also has a 2 damage mastercrafted power weapon. But if you're looking to put Lieutenant Titus on the table, or you're looking to field an extremely efficient Stern Guard veteran squad, I think that's when you slap Lieutenant Titus on the battlefield. So let me know what you think of Lieutenant Titus. Can you think of a situation where he'd be better than a typical lieutenant? Or for you, is the lieutenant always the easy choice? I personally am going to take Lieutenant Titus. I'm going to throw him in a squad of 10 Stern Guard, and I'm going to see how it goes. Let me know down in the comments if you're going to give this a shot as well. If you just like the model, you just like the lore, or you want to put him on the table regardless. As always, special thanks to CMO Games for sponsoring the channel. Check out the link in the description to save 15% on most Games Workshop products. And make sure to tell them that Warhammer Man sent you. Warhammer Man Studios, I'm Warhammer Man, and I'm out of here.